And speaking of New Jersey, we may be hearing the last whale sounds from Shamu, El Jefe Chris Christie, who obviously felt, gee, I might be able to actually go out with a victory, as I have been promoting for most of my term in office, the right of New Jerseyans to ante up on sporting events at casinos and other venues in New Jersey. That would add a lot of scandal to the tax rolls. And obviously it help offset the pension crisis that's looming over the Garden State. In fact, as the United States Supreme Court decided to hear the case, this is what Shamu El Jefe Chris Christie had to say.
New Jersey wants to appropriately regulate sports gaming, and here's why. We want to do it because 65% of the people of the state of New Jersey voted that they want to do it.
On the line to discuss it, Steve Adubato, son of New Jersey, anchor on the PBS flagship WNET and WNJ-TV, and author of the book Lessons in Leadership. Thanks for joining us again here on the Drive Home at 5, Steve.
Curtis, it's the highlight of my day and everyone else who's on the roads right now, talking with you, listening to you. I'm looking forward to talking about this huge issue before the Supreme Court.
Well, I could see that your governor had a big grin on his face today from year to year. He oftentimes is not seen to be grinning in Trenton. He's on the cusp of a major victory here, isn't he?
Look, Curtis, why should 4 states out of the 50, just 4 states, why should 4 states have legalized sports gambling and 40 states not? Why should New Jersey, with our casinos, with our fiscal challenges, not have sports betting? Why should it be? When this law was first passed and decided that the feds would control which states got to have legalized sports betting, what about the fact that the NFL is now in Las Vegas? So let me get this straight. When this law was passed, if they were so concerned about legalized sports betting, why would the NFL have a new sports franchise, a football team, going to Vegas? Because there's no gambling going on. It's ridiculous. It's hypocritical. And it's not even about Chris Christie. It's about fairness and equity and states being able to raise money in an appropriate fashion, and this seems appropriate.
Well,
and if it's wrong, then no state should be able to do it, Curtis.
Steve Adubato, the last time you were here in the facilities at WABC high atop Madison Square Garden, you were here with your son. You were ready to go down and watch your beloved Seton Hall basketball team lose.
Against Villanova. Why do you remember these things?
Oh, because I hate Seton Hall with a passion. But anyway.
Yeah, we know that.
The point is, one of the reasons you wouldn't want to have necessarily legalized sports gambling is the influence on players, whether at the collegiate level or at the NBA level, professional or amateur, to shave points, to throw games because of the incredible amounts of money that would be dealt.
Listen, Curtis, I hear you and I appreciate that point, but here's the problem. If that is legitimately what the NFL is concerned about and the NCAA that regulates college sports, if they're legitimately concerned about that, then don't have sports betting out in Vegas. Then don't have sports betting in the other 3 states. If that's the legitimate point, then do it. But it's crap, Curtis, because what they want to do is the NFL wants to control the revenue. Why would they have a relationship with fantasy football? Fantasy football is about gambling, Curtis. You know and I know it. The hypocrisy is the problem, because if what you're saying is the legitimate argument on the part of the NFL and the NCAA, then ban it in every state, all 50. And they're not going to do that because they want to skim what they can, control it, and get the revenue. This is not about making sure that players don't throw games. It's not at all.
Yeah, but, Steve, I thought fantasy football was more like we as adults dreaming with Eli Manning throwing a fourth-quarter touchdown pass in the corner to Odell Beckham and winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, right. And there's no gambling connected to it, and it has nothing to do with wagering, nothing. That's just not true. The fact is that fantasy football has all different permutations, and some of it is connected to gambling.
Has there been an estimate by the Christie administration in terms of how much lucre, how much dinero is out there for the taking?
I haven't seen any real numbers, Curtis, but let me just say this. As someone who grew up, let's just say, in a neighborhood that in Newark, New Jersey, that you understand very well, given where you grew up, the amount of illegal sports gambling and betting that went on through my entire childhood and into my adulthood, let's just say there was a lot of money that was going to certain folks who were controlling illegal sports gambling, and that money was never going into the government to fund important programs. It was all being taken in by folks in organized crime. You know, and I know it. The fact is, millions of people choose to gamble. What is the lottery? That's what it is.
Hey.
And if that money can go to the state, it should.
That's right. Even young Steve Adubato going to St. Lucy's Mass on Sunday and then picking up the Italian bread, the loaf of Italian bread and the box of cannolis. Even you were being asked when you were in the bakery, hey, you want to lay a little action on the Giant or the Jet game today?
Curtis, if I were to say that that was not the case, I would lose my integrity as a journalist who does not traffic in fake news.
Now, in regards to the money that could be made, if in fact Chris Christie wins this case before the United States Supreme Court, Murphy, the brand new governor, becomes the beneficiary. And he wants to not only roll joints, but roll in dough from the proceeds made from the sale of recreational marijuana. He's going to push that through both houses in Trenton. What do you think this will mean for the state of New Jersey?
First of all, Curtis, let's not be quick to predict that this is going to move so quickly, if you will, through both houses of the legislature. There are members of the legislature on both sides of the aisle who have raised questions about this. And so I'm going to say this. I'm not against legalized marijuana, but I would say this. What is a higher priority in my mind is making sure that medicinal marijuana, which is supposedly legal in the state, that the barriers that have been set up to get marijuana for those who are suffering with certain illnesses, that be taken care of first. I'm not convinced that everyone in the state legislature is going to roll over on this one for Governor-elect Murphy. It may happen over time, and if it does, it's got to be regulated in a way to make sure that, and I don't know exactly what goes on in California, but Curtis, I hear all kinds of people are taking advantage of it in a way that doesn't make sense. That has to be regulated and controlled, and we can't have it be a gateway to any other drug. And a lot of questions have to be answered.
And far away from Iselin in Edison, New Jersey, which is like the little New Delhi of New Jersey, the former president himself, Barack Obama, was in a lotus position in an ashram outside of Pondicherry with the Hindu god Ganesh peering down at him as he spoke to an international group of folks who were there about communicating skills. And he said this about Twitter.
You see in people getting into all kinds of trouble because they just send out some tweet and then they're trying to erase it afterwards. But somebody's screenshot it and then they're embarrassed. Hey, you know, your mother and your father knew better. Listen to them. Don't do things like that. Think before you speak. Think before you tweet. Same principle.
Think before you tweet is what the former president was really directing at this president, Donald Trump.
Hey, listen, Curtis, you are on the air countless hours. You have the opportunity to say the smartest and the dumbest things. I'm going to say this, though. I do think you think before you speak. Donald Trump, in my opinion, tweets in the most reckless, irresponsible fashion I've ever seen. As a student of leadership who writes about it, you cannot be a great leader without being a disciplined communicator. When you tweet about the FBI, when you trash the FBI while they're investigating, there's a special prosecutor, and this guy, our president, is tweeting about the quality of the FBI, and he's going to improve it because it's in shambles. Let me say this, tweeting and the FBI don't go together, particularly, and even if you are the president. The fact that he doesn't understand that shows how reckless he really is.
You think, as a recommendation, since you do lecture to many CEOs and heads of corporations about lessons of leadership, you would just start handing out Chinese finger traps and telling them to stay away from their Twitter account?
Do not tweet unless you have something smart to say that is positive and upbeat, and do not trash people and leave carnage all over the place in roadkill and then say, by the way, my PR people will explain what I really meant.
Oh.
You can't do that as a CEO, much less the President of the United States.
God, what a dull series of tweets that would be, Steve.
Sorry. Listen, it's about staying out of trouble and staying focused on what's important and getting things done, Curtis. It's not about being a character on a talk show or, on a reality show. He was really good at that. He's not good at this.
Well, we will discuss that with Mike Rogers up next, the former FBI special agent and member of Congress, as to whether the FBI is in shambles, as the president says, or it's a stellar operation, as his adversary Comey says.
77 WABC, Traffic and Transit.